There are two very important changes that are going to dictate the future of Georgetown, Texas real estate. You remember the high-flying market of 2021 and part of 22? Well, that ended abruptly in the summer of 2022, and the inevitable market correction started. Since then, we've seen a steady decline in home prices. Currently, homes are sitting on the market for approximately 102 days. Mortgage rates have pushed up well past 6%. Despite these factors, more homes are selling in Georgetown, Texas, showing that buyers are active. So what's actually happening here? Well, I'm Stuart Sutton, and I've spent well over 3 decades working the Georgetown, Texas real estate market. Long enough that on my first business card, I had a thick head of hair. Based on the latest data, there's some important factors you should understand about exactly what has shifted and where this goes next. So in this video, I'm going to cover the specific forces driving the shift in Georgetown, Texas real estate, what it means for buyers and sellers depending on which part of the market you're in, and a breakdown of areas where the shift is hitting the hardest. Now, Georgetown, Texas has surpassed 100,000 residents. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, it was the fastest growing city in the entire country. That kind of growth attracts a lot of attention. As a result, a lot of agents are willing to sell a home in Georgetown, Texas, but few, precious few, understand the Georgetown real estate market, know where the 5 micro markets within Georgetown exist, grasp the sheer variety of housing that no other Austin suburb can offer. Because of my time here, I track Georgetown, Texas real estate by community, price band, housing type. I know the difference between what's happening in Sun City, what's going on in Wolf Ranch. I know what's moving in new home markets and the large lot market. And that granularity matters because broad metro data for Austin tells you almost nothing about what to do in Georgetown specifically. And let me be clear about my approach to these videos. My goal is to help you make smart, confident moves based on what's happening locally. And that means when I show you figures and numbers, I'm going to tell you where they came from and what they mean in plain English. What you're going to get in this video and my other videos is a ground level read on the Georgetown, Texas real estate market right now, backed by current market data and filtered through well over 3 decades of watching this city grow from a small central Texas town into one of the most sought after retirement and relocation destinations in the country. That's a context that lets me tell you when a headline is misleading. Right now, there's some very misleading headlines floating around about Georgetown real estate. To understand where we are now, you need to understand where it came from. As I mentioned in 21 and 22, market a lot of people can't seem to forget, but they really should. This market was moving at a pace most people had never seen, including me. If you'd asked me just before that market if I'd have seen it all, I probably would have said yes. I've been through multiple real estate booms and busts and thought I had until 21 and 22. If you found a home you liked and you didn't write an offer immediately, it was gone. Buyers were waiving inspections. That's pretty high risk. They were paying overvalue, knowing they were paying overvalue. Sellers were fielding 6, 7, 8 offers in some areas and 20 or 30 in others. My coffee intake during those 2 years probably should be studied by one of those YouTube wellness experts. Well, that market was actually quite short-lived, about 18 to 20 months. The only reason I bring it up is because it still affects home sellers 4 years later. Our focus in this video is the steady but gradual decline of Georgetown, Texas real estate since the summer of 22. The positive word is steady. There wasn't a big crash like after the 2008 debacle. The steadiness is actually one of the reasons that home sellers had a hard time with it, because that steadiness made it hard to feel the decline in home values. That inevitable correction took place slowly and quietly over several years, and the stats showed small but negative moves in statistical data month after month, year after year. Now, builders communities that have been absorbing demand for years kept delivering new homes. And buyers, watching rates stay stubbornly above 6%, started taking their times, leaving homes sitting on the market longer than sellers and agents ever expected. They moved in a direction that creates very different opportunities depending on whether you're buying or selling. So what actually caused this? There are 3 things happening at the same time, and it's a combination of those that created the shift. First is new construction volume. Communities like Morningstar, Wolf Ranch, Palmer Ranch, Parkside on the River, and others, all delivering homes at a significant pace over the last several years. That inventory eventually caught up with demand. Builders didn't slow down. They kept delivering. As those homes started closing, it created 2 things simultaneously: more supply and a lower median price on paper. Builders are able to react more quickly than individual sellers. So they did what builders do. They offered incentives, big ones. Their motivation is to keep prices up, which is exactly what they did as long as they could. And it was because of those massive incentives. Buyers were okay paying a similar price to last year, even in a declining market, if they got 30, $40,000, $50,000 in flex cash that they could use however they wanted. However, builder incentives have started decreasing along with home prices. Builders don't like to lower home prices. Another piece that's important, in the first half of 26, the average overall price change was negligible compared to 25, meaning the steady decline over the last 4 years may not be a continuing story. You know, it's interesting. The correction after the 2008 crash lasted 4 years before we hit an even year in home prices. Guess how long it's been since this correction started? That's right, 4 years. So builders are moving prices and incentives. Home prices stabilized. They both support that shift that I'm pointing out, as well as a few other factors. Buyers actually paid closer to asking than they did a year ago. Another factor, an increased number of home sales in Georgetown, Texas. Again, not a declining market stat. So now we're seeing a little bit of a mixed bag of market stats, so we're actually seeing a real shift. Seemingly no more decline. As of June 26, Georgetown had 1,058 active listings, 5.1 months of supply according to the Unlock MLS data. Now, 6 months of supply is generally accepted as a line between seller's market and buyer's market. Georgetown crossed that line into positive territory. That's an important structural change in this market. Now, let's add one more thing. Hesitation. Mortgage rates have been sitting in a narrow band between 6.4 and 6.6% since February, according to Freddie Mac. And we all know that buyers are payment sensitive, but increased sales show that they're getting used to the current rate. But even so, buyers who genuinely love a home are still taking a little longer to make a commitment. That adds extra days in the market across the board. I understand that. I take a while to commit to a new pair of sunglasses, so I can't blame someone for taking their time to make a house buying decision. When you combine those factors that I just discussed, you start to see the support for a shift to normalcy. If you're watching this and considering a move to Georgetown, Texas to retire, or just to move here to be closer to family, my ultimate retirement guide for Georgetown, Texas is packed with information that's going to answer a lot of questions for you. Not just about real estate, but about restaurants, things to do, safety, weather, all kinds of information. Most of the questions that we've been asked, we've added to that guide. So feel free to download that. No hassle, no obligation. If you'd like to have a conversation about your situation, feel free to text or call. I'm a little old-fashioned and do return my calls and texts personally. If you're not quite ready for a conversation, again, no hassle, just download that guide. It's going to be very helpful to you. So now that we understand why the shift happened, let's talk about what it actually looks like on the ground right now. 5 specific changes we're going to cover. Practical implications. And yes, I promise this is going to be more interesting than it sounds, because I know that let's talk about MLS data is not exactly your idea of a beach read. So the first change, price reductions have become the norm. Over 61% of active listings in Georgetown have already had a price reduction. It's not a small number. A year ago, that number was meaningfully lower. And the translation is this: a lot of sellers listed a number their agent probably winced at. In reality, has since had a conversation with them. For buyers, this means you're not negotiating from a fair market starting point. You're negotiating from a number that's already had one round of reductions, if not more. But this is actually another positive. One of the reasons that Georgetown, Texas saw more home sales in 26, because sellers have come to grips with that steady decline and decided not to get left behind. The second change, days on the market. Median days on the market in Georgetown as of March was 86 days. Now, I mentioned average earlier. Median is about 86, and that's up from last year. For context, 45 days or less, seller's market. 45 to 70, balanced market. Above 70, buyers get to sit back with a cup of coffee and take their time. But there's actually a split worth noting here. Well-priced homes in this market are moving at a median of 26 days versus a 50-day countywide average. Georgetown's master plan communities are offering packages worth $8,000 to $25,000. And again, that's a drop for prior years. Some builders have actually lowered their prices and their incentives because buyers are seeing resale homes drop and the spread is just too much. Now, some builders are still offering rate buy downs, and that can be a real monthly payment difference. So resale listings aren't just competing with the house next door anymore, they're competing with the builder's finance department. For change, where demand is concentrated, the largest share of closings are happening in the $300,000 to $500,000 price range. As a matter of fact, below $600,000, things are moving along pretty well. Above $700,000, buyers have a little more time, more options, and more leverage. Fifth change, this one's encouraging as well. The closed transaction volume was up 11.5% from a year ago. So again, deals are happening, but what's changed is the term those deals are closing on, which is what we're going to cover next. If you're a buyer in Georgetown, Texas right now, you're in a very favorable negotiating environment. One of the best I've seen since before the pandemic. Buyer's market is one of those phrases realtors love to say and never actually explain. But since this market is shifting, let me cover what is happening right now. Buyers are paying about 2.42% below asking, according to the Multiple Listing Service. Combine that with a median 86 days in the market, and the whole posture changes. You've got a little time, you can expect thoroughly, you can compare, you can negotiate without your agent texting you in caps. And on the new construction side, the incentive math deserves a closer look before you take any builder at face offer. A 2-1 buy down, common builder tool right now, knocks your rate down 2% in year 1, 1% in year 2, before settling in at the regular market rate in year 3. Now, the builder actually funds the difference at closing, so it doesn't come out of your pocket. And there are some builders that have offered first-year rates as low as 2.99%. That's hundreds of dollars a month in savings during that buy-down period. But here's the part that a lot of buyers miss. That buy-down isn't free. Builders build it into the price. Here's a way to protect yourself. It's simple. Get a competing quote from an outside lender. Same loan structure, same terms, and compare the total payment picture over 5 to 7 years. Now, the builder incentive package may come out on top, but it may not. By the way, my preferred lender is Steve Ferguson at RWM Mortgage, 512-913-7566. He can help you. No hassle, no obligation. Now, for buyers at the upper end of the Georgetown market, $700,000 to $1.2 million, leverage is even more pronounced. Supply above $600,000 is running higher relative to demand, meaning sellers are more motivated, a little more flexible on terms than they have been. So if you've been watching the Georgetown market from out of state, waiting for the right moment, the data right now is about as close to a green light as I've seen since, again, before the pandemic. For home sellers in Georgetown, Texas, I tend to be blunt, so I apologize in advance, but it's because I think you deserve that. Buyers are active in Georgetown right now, and they're paying close attention, but they're also comparing every option carefully. And they're pushing back hard when a home feels like it might be priced ahead of where it should be. And they typically respond with silence. What that silence looks like in practice is a home sitting for 60, 70, 100 days or more when you thought it should already be sold. Lots of showings, but no offers. That silence is expensive. Every week on the market costs you negotiating power, and eventually buyers start ordering what's wrong. Even if the honest answer is the seller is just feeling optimistic to begin with, and it seems to be priced well now. The longer it sits, the more that question works against you. The data actually confirms that the market is splitting into two, as I've already mentioned. Well-priced homes are selling in a reasonable time frame. In Williamson County, that's a median of 26 days. Homes that are priced ahead of the market, or let's just face it, overpriced, are the ones dragging the average up. The let's test the market at a higher number and see what happens rarely goes the way you planned. Your resale home is competing with new construction in the $400,000 to $600,000 range. We've already shown you that new construction often comes with very handsome incentives. And the builders have already done something they really don't like to do, and that's to lower their prices. But you do have some things a builder cannot offer. An established neighborhood, mature trees, proximity to Georgetown's historic square, and a home a buyer can move into now, instead of waiting on a construction schedule that always seems to slip by more than a few weeks. Now, buyers are currently paying about 2.4% below asking. That is a very good stat. But if you price too high, you're not going to get that. When you finally do sell, they'll be below that, and the wait to get there will be frustrating. Successful sellers understand how they're positioned against resale competition and new construction. And that's not a general market strategy. It's a lane-by-lane analysis. There are 5 micro markets in Georgetown, Texas, and you need to know where you stand within your micro market. Now let's talk about some specifics, because the shift isn't hitting every part of Georgetown the same. Let's start with 55 plus homes, including Sun City. Over the 6 months ending June of 26, these home prices were up about 1% over a year ago. That is a very positive stat. Average sale price, about $413,000. Average days in the market, just under 100 at about 96 days. And keep in mind, there aren't many new homes in this particular market, the 55 plus market, so that's mostly resale. Inventory did tighten up a little bit, and that's positive too. But there's really not a rush if you're buying a home in the 55 plus market. Now for sellers, pricing precision and preparation matters more than it has in years. Now new homes, most disappointing area of Georgetown, saw home sales drop in the first 6 months. But one exception was Wolf Ranch. and most of the home sales in Wolf Ranch were in that $390,000 to $500,000 range. And a lot of what's driving those sales are price reductions and incentives. Realize there are a lot of good quality builders in the master plan communities around Georgetown, and you have leverage. Basically, they're bidding over you instead of the other way around. But for resale sellers, the challenge is that buyers put your home side by side with a new one in the same neighborhood with incentives attached. So your pricing has to account for that. Morningstar was one of those areas that saw sales dip despite being at the entry level of the new home market. In moving over to Old Town District, the historic area, that shows a median listing price of around $649,000 in less than 70 days on the market. A very different profile than some of the other areas. The upper end of Georgetown, established neighborhood, acreage properties, homes above 700 is holding firm. And this all tracks with what I see across the $700,000 to $1.2 million range in Georgetown. Resale homes overall saw a generous bump in 26 compared to 25, while new homes slipped, again with the exception of Wolf Ranch. But Nolina, Palmer Ranch, Parkside on the River all saw decreases from a year ago, and thus price reductions. For Santa Rita Ranch, which actually has matured into a neighborhood with plenty of resales and new home sales, the resale homes in Santa Rita Ranch actually increased, while the new homes decreased. So that's kind of an overview of some specifics. What does this all mean for the shift that I've been discussing? I've been tracking the Georgetown, Texas market through multiple cycles for well over 3 decades. What I see right now is not a continuation of the steady, prolonged downturn that we've been experiencing. That's become tiresome for pretty much everybody involved. What I'm seeing right now is kind of an absorption phase. After several years of gradual decline, through June of 26, we saw new contracts up. We saw home sales up in that first 6 months of this year compared to last year. We saw supply trending downward. In addition, the transaction volume was up about 11.5% from a year ago. So transactions are happening in the market. What's changing is the terms. Buyers are getting more, sellers are conceding more. Now don't get me wrong, sellers aren't taking it on the chin. They're still coming out well ahead of where they would have been had the market not blown up in 21 and 22. But the current data is what an absorption phase looks like. Let's talk bluntly about rates. The 30-year fixed average is around 6.49% as of June the 25th, according to Freddie Mac. After the most recent Fed meeting, rates drifted slightly higher, not because the Fed raised rates, but because updated projections signaled a hike, not a cut. And inflation is still running slightly above the Fed's target, so the rate relief a lot of buyers have been waiting for is probably farther out than optimists were anticipating. So in practical terms, that means the market is unlikely to continue slipping like we have the last 4 years. We're certainly not going to flip back into a seller's market. But buyers who wait for rates to drop dramatically before acting may find that once they do, demand will spike, and that favorable negotiating window could disappear. I've seen that happen more than once. And let's face it, Georgetown's structural advantages, they're not going anywhere. The population is now over 101,000, growing steadily at 4.76% a year. The historic town square is a genuine draw for people all across the state and the country. The school districts keep drawing families. The commercial and employment bases keep expanding. Georgetown has more 55-plus active communities than anywhere around Austin, more 1 acre plus homes than anywhere around Austin, more new homes than anywhere around Austin, more historic viable homes around the square than anywhere around Austin, not to mention all of the amenities in Georgetown. All the factors point to the shift being one of stabilization instead of continued decline. This is the kind of market where well-informed buyers and sellers come out ahead. Now, even though rates are a little higher than we would have hoped for, buyers have kind of settled into, hey, that's what rates are. But the price you negotiate today in this environment is something you can control. So everything I just walked you through, the shift, the neighborhood, the breakdown, where the leverage is, that's the kind of analysis that changes what you decide to do and when you decide to do it. If you're selling and you price based on the 24 market instead of where things actually are right now, you could be looking at 90 days or more on the market. Price reductions and a final price lower than what you would have gotten with the right price to begin with. If you're buying, negotiation is in your favor right now, and all the factors point to it. If you'd like to discuss your particular situation, don't hesitate to call or text. I'm a little old-fashioned, so I do return my calls and texts personally. If you're not quite ready for a conversation, no worries. Just download the Ultimate Georgetown, Texas Retirement Guide. It'll answer more questions than you probably have. Again, call or text, no hassle, no obligation. I hope to meet you soon, and remember, it's your choice, so make it a powerful day.